I want to bring to the forefront that you've done some non-traditional venue gigs. Like earlier this week, you did something at the World of Speed, and last year you did that gig at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, OMSI Planetarium. You're going to be doing that gig again, playing Michael Gordon's Timber. Tell me about how like the planetarium gig came about, and also what it's like to play in those spaces or the World of Speed, and the kind of audience, I guess, too, that comes to those gigs that could be very different from your typical concert-going crowd.
Yeah, totally. I think the planetarium concert came about last year because I have a family friend who worked at OMSI for years, and I knew that they do some concert, kind of ongoing. They'll host bands and things in the planetarium space there, and so
your traditional Pink Floyd laser show,
right? Exactly. Right, exactly. Oh yeah, all the goodies. And so, actually, that's a weekly show.
Well, there you go.
They do that weekly. The Pink Floyd laser show is a weekly thing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like Friday nights or something. So we, I kind of reached out, and this friend put me in touch with some folks at OMSI, and that was a great experience. We ended up, kind of having to put a really interesting, unique program together in a unique way. I mean, it was a lot of pieces, but because of the space limitations, we had to sort of create this one setup that we could play like 9 pieces from. I think we had 60 minutes of continuous playing without stopping.
We even took one song and completely changed the key so it could transition from one piece to the other.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so we really kind of crafted getting from one thing to the next. The audience was interesting because shows like that are fun. I think we had about 180 in the audience for that. It was a pretty full room, and
were you in this? Was it set up like you were in the center of the room? And
right, so there's a circular, so there's a circular space in the middle of that planetarium. It's about 16 feet across, and then the seating is all around it in a circle. And so we
bought like 16 stand lights or something.
Yeah,
and then we had to put red translucent tape on it because it was the lights themselves were too. Yeah,
it was a lot to coordinate, but I think the audience was.
They dug it because
it was cool.
It's so intimate.
Different,
I mean, they're literally like touching the back of my legs while I'm playing a piece because the setup was taking up so much space that that was the only way to do it. Just had to like stand there and be like, sorry, I have to stand right here.
Yeah, and it's interesting playing for a crowd like that because there were certainly familiar faces. We had some friends at that show, but I don't know. There's probably 150 people who we didn't know. That was just kind of a general public, and for what we do, it's like. Trying to put programming together, I think that's going to sort of hit home with an audience that isn't familiar with contemporary percussion music in particular. I think I feel like we did a pretty decent job of hitting that. Now we'll see about Timber. I think Timber is a little more esoteric than what we did last time. I'm curious to see what the audience reaction is, but there is kind of such a intellectual curiosity, hopefully, with that piece, and when you see it done.
I think Timber is one of those that, in my opinion, it would be something that's very polarizing. Like either people are going to really love it or people are going to really hate it.
Yeah.
You're not really going to get that much in between. So
yeah, the World of Speed concert that we did last week, that came about with some friends of ours. That's a piano duo from Queens, New York, and we've played with them a few times over the last couple of years. They do a one-day kind of marathon contemporary music festival in Portland every summer called Macrocosmos Project. There was a connection through them to the folks at World of Speed, somebody that was on the board there, and so I think they had been talking with him about doing a concert of some kind there, and so that's kind of what just led step by step. I don't know, we started 6 months ago or something. We started talking about doing a concert in this space, and it was great because again, I think we probably had 200 people there who otherwise would maybe not have come out to the same program at, a concert hall somewhere.
Sure.
Right? For us, it's more fun to do shows in interesting spaces. And I think it's also a good way we found to kind of make the experience a little more well-rounded for people. If you can be in a cool space and kind of be walking around with a beer or a glass of wine and have a little snack and listen to some music. I mean, I think it makes the experience a little more inviting.
It was definitely an event.
Yeah,
rather than just a concert.
Just sitting and trying to take in all of this kind of high level art music, it's like it's a little easier, I think, to process some of those things if you're like, we're having a good time.
Classical musicians are very hip to the fact that it's, audiences are shrinking, but you're thinking this more in like the orchestral setting, big symphonies, and how the audience is not really getting younger, and they're trying, and many are doing movie scores being played along with movies, and that's great. But since we're not such a large group, we have the ability to go to these other places, and I think it's been really successful in that we are definitely now consistently seeing people that we don't know at our shows. And it's because they came to this, like, we haven't had a performance after the World of Speed, but there were numerous people who came up to me after that who were like, I was supposed to come here with my friends who like classical music, but they bailed, and so I just invited 2 more car lovers, and like, I've never seen anything like this, but like, yeah, I'm going to get on your mailing list because I want to come and check this out in the future. And it's like, sometimes the music can lack accessibility, but I don't think that's as much it. It's just that people don't know about this style of music, really. Like, it is a small niche thing, but it's because people are kind of traditionally keeping it in these, more traditional concert halls, which is great. And like, I still want to keep doing those, but I'm loving doing these shows because it's just way more fun. You're talking to people who look like little kids, like discovering something new, they are essentially. And I don't know, it's been really rewarding for me, not to only be in a cool car museum or whatever, but to, have all these other people who would otherwise never have checked contemporary percussion music out, who are now definitely going to at least like look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even discovering new things like that can happen because at that concert, my girlfriend's parents were there, and they're both musicians, but she's not as well versed in percussion stuff, and she had no idea that bowed instruments were a thing, right? That you could bow a vibraphone or a crotale, and it was we ended up having a big discussion about that technique, and specifically about how I used it in comparison to the way that it was used in other pieces that you did on the program, and being able to give even a musician more exposure specifically to contemporary percussion techniques or literature or things that are new about that, to me, I think it's always nice to be able to have a conversation of starters like
and
that.
I think the layout of these other performances make it more inviting for that discussion to take place after the fact. Absolutely. When you're on a stage that's elevated and people are down there, I think we try to go and talk with people, but there still seems to be more of the expectation, like, oh, concert's over, there's the door.
Yeah, there's
a
divide disconnect between the performer and the audience.
Yeah, where it's
conversational.
We're on like the level floor. They can see down into what we're doing. We're inviting them to stand around us while we're playing oftentimes. And I think it makes them feel more comfortable to ask questions. And people are inherently curious. And they want to know, it's like, what were you doing that made that sound? I saw you like touching this thing, and I don't know what was going on. I've never heard that before. And you explain it, and they're really curious about it. And that makes them want to come and see more.
So what I loved about the World of Speed show is that, so we had an hour like pre-performance, so to speak, where we set up instruments in front of different cars. And so we'd play for 5 minutes and take a 10-minute break, and people would come up and talk with us and have some wine and cheese. But what was really cool is the fact that when we got to the actual main concert part, is each piece was paired with a different automobile. So we're saying this piece goes with this car, this goes with this car. And, the museum members a lot of them came to the show, and people that are, I think are really into like awesome cars or that high level of thing are also like, wow, we saw some high level cars, but man, we got to see some high level musicians. And normally people like that can appreciate anybody that's really good at what they do, regardless of the idiom. And I really believe that. They're like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. There's common ground there, even if the actual content is very drastically different.
Yeah, and the specific pairing of the pieces with the cars too. I mean, it really helps people who maybe like, when I listen to music, I'm envisioning and like feeling all sorts of things because I spent a long time like trying to do that. And somebody who maybe just hasn't listened to a lot of music like that would struggle to make those kind of connections. But when you have like a piece of music being played in front of a car, it is a work of art in itself too. And they're much more than me. I'm not a car person. And like, they're talking about all these modifications to these cars, like, oh, the way that this hood just slightly tapers in this way. It's like, I never would have noticed that actually. It's all these details. But then it aids them in seeing those details in the music that maybe they wouldn't otherwise see, and in turn, like me seeing these things in cars too. So it's a really cool exchange, I think.
Yeah. Cool, sweet. nienteForte is celebrating its landmark 10th season, sponsored by the National Performance Network. You can join us in championing contemporary music in New Orleans with a tax-deductible donation. Donating can get you some great perks, including early access to these roundtables, signed posters and programs from our featured performers, signed music scores from our featured composers, and even custom handwritten miniature compositions from composers in the nienteForte community. For more information, go to nienteForte.com/donate.